My sickly condition as a child growing up created a perversion of perspective because I had suffered for years. um, the developmental aspect of my mind saw the world the wrong way. So, and also due to my ignorance and lack of expertise, at the time my only solution was to become a vegan, denying myself what I could have eaten had I known how to cope. Well, now I know. Stay away from starchy grains. Um, pretty much stay away from dairy products. Use soy milk instead, coconut milk, products. Eat lots of beans, fruits and nuts, dried fruits, dates, dried apricots, nut butters, seed butters, tubers, such as potatoes, and more importantly, tapioca and eggs. Make a tapioca pudding with eggs and tapioca and coconut water. All these things, now that I'm 63, I figured out, with the help of some people, what to eat, what not to eat, and most importantly, how to treat my ears. Because when you suffer, it's how you view your suffering that makes all the difference in terms of, what kind of decisions you make. Are they smart decisions? Are they dumb decisions? And if the mind is perverted, let's say due to this, supposedly due to the suffering, then that's a shitty life, because the suffering has infected the mind and poisoned it with a perverted outlook. And so it wasn't just the sickliness, but it was the perversion. It's literally a two-part problem. And I'm still sickly, but I know how to deal with it. Plus, I now know how to change the perspective. Meditation is good because it approaches the problem, the perversion of consciousness and perspective, from a mental standpoint. Because there is a mental component, but there's also a physiological component, and that has to be dealt with separately. If you try to use one to take care of both, to overcompensate for the lack of the technique on the other half of our reality, it's too much of a strain and it's asking too much. It's better to address both halves directly. So meditation to take care of the mental component, and a psychophysiological technique to take care of the physiological component, and that is the cleaning of the ears. But this is taking cleaning to a whole nother level, because it's not just hydrogen peroxide to sterilize the ear and burn out the germs and some of the excess wax, but then silver water immediately afterwards, another second treatment to leave a residue of silver, to neutralize residual hydrogen peroxide, and to impregnate the wax with silver so that the ear can heal. But more importantly, the signals sent from the ear to the brain and the brain back to the ear canal become non-perverted, become healed. The signals have to become healed, and it has to habituate. One little treatment may not do it, even though it's wow, but the second, each time it's done, it changes the dialogue, the habitual dialogue that goes on between the brain and the ear, such that it's no longer perverted. And this perversion is very significant, because it literally changes the world perspective. Now, I'm sure that's what happened when people took the city course, because when I looked at my fellow students as they were coming off the course or engaged in the course, some of them were transfigured beyond belief. There's one girl, I couldn't even recognize her. She was so different. Her aura, her countenance, her behavior, her persona, everything was so different. I kept looking at her and saying, do I know this person? She looks familiar. And yet she's so different from what I recall she was prior to entering the course, just several weeks prior to that, the beginning of the summer. And this was at the end of the summer. She was like a different, she wasn't like, she was a different person. So for some people, they really took to the city program and just skyrocketed to a transfiguration that literally was overnight, while other people took it kind of hard. And I suspect, as I told someone who asked me, oh, what about these people who don't seem to handle the cities very well? Well, because they don't understand what the cities are. TM, meditation, is for yourself, but the cities are for the world. And then then he got it. So you really have to be service-oriented in order to take to the cities. And I think the cleaning of the ears and developing this psychophysiological technique one step further than the way it's normally done by people takes it to a whole nother level. So now it becomes magic. It becomes magical. It literally utilizes the principle of leverage to overcome perversion of habituated thought patterns. And this is what Charlie Lutz kept saying. The mind is really geared for habits, more so than the body, in the sense that it's harder to change mental habits than any other kind of habit. And of course, the hardest habits are those associated with the senses of smell and taste. But here, this is hearing. This is hearing in our ear. And it's not that hard to change it. But it's mind-blowing, the effect it has. It's unbelievable. Now, it is changing the smell of the ear by sterilizing it. But silver doesn't do that. Silver is food for regeneration, and it's also a metal, which means it's going to have an impact on electrical signals. The hydrogen peroxide, yeah, but very temporary because it's unstable. Silver's not. Silver's going to stay there and continue to send new signals to the brain that are contrary to the signals that previously had been the dominant signals, namely the wax was sending its own signals, and the vermin creating toxins, toxic effluent from discharge from their bodies, the pathological microorganisms living in the ear canal, that was sending its own set of signals that perverted the mind's perception of reality. So the silver is now interjecting. Now that the slate has been clean, has been wiped clean with the hydrogen peroxide, now we get to draw new script, re-script the ear canal so that it can send healthy messages to the mind instead of faulty messages, dirty, filthy, messy messages that are self-derogatory, self-destructive, and have nothing to do with what human life is supposed to be. We're not supposed to suffer, or any kind of life for that matter. You know, it's the epitome, though, you would think, of the human who's at the epitome of evolution of all creatures in creation. The human is at the peak of development because we can multiplex. Unlike all other creatures who have to specialize, we can get into anything because we've already been there and done that. And so now we're trying to integrate all of this into a whole sense of unity among all those different experiences we had in previous incarnations, when we were an insect, when we were an animal, when we were a plant, a rock, all those experiences integrated into a singularity of consciousness. And it's not easy, you know, when you got karma and you're born with a shitty childhood and you're sickly and whatever, and you know, hey, you got to come in, here it comes. What do you do about it? So this literally is such a simple and inexpensive technique. It's mind-blowing. I've only done it 2 or 3 times, and I don't have to treat my ears every day anymore. I can let several days go by before I need to do it. And I know when I need to do it, when the disturbance of other people not only encroaches into my awareness, but poisons it. Then I know it's time to do it again. Because I'm not creating that poison. I may become vulnerable after a certain number of days have passed since the last treatment, but that doesn't mean I create it anymore, because I know not to. I know how to not to. So I avoid creating my own shit, but that doesn't mean I'm not vulnerable to anybody else's, especially anybody I might be involved with emotionally. So that's when I do the treatment. I go home, do the treatment, and then next day I'm cleared. And I'm more healed than I was before. So I only do it out of need. But now I don't need to do it as often, and boy, when I do it, I really get the benefits. So I had to make another video because it's mind-blowing how beautiful this is. Literally, I don't have much more to say. What can I say?